Welcome to Arts Lunch at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. I'm Jennifer Freeman. I teach in theology and the arts and the program director. I'm very excited to have with us Isabel Nelson, who's a current MDiv student in theology and the arts. And we'll be presenting today the Arts Practicum Project and more, Motherhood Mourning Song. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Isabel to say a little bit more. Introductory comments.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. It's really lovely to see all of y'all. Some of you I know, some of whom I don't. I would actually invite, apparently this isn't normal, but if folks are willing to introduce themselves and let me know where you're zooming in from, name, program, pronouns, program, and if you feel so bold, what brings you to Arts Lunch today? I would love to hear it. My name is Isabel. I use she, they. I'm here on United's campus on the ancestral homelands of the Dakota people, and I'm an MDiv in theology and arts. I could popcorn it. Popcorn to pat. The alliteration is great.
I'm Pat Brown. I live in northern Minnesota. I'm an auditor at United, and I just come to Art Lunch to hang out with all you people that I care about.
Pat, do you want a popcorn or is someone feeling bold?
I'm sorry, I didn't, you know what? I'm so old, I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, call on somebody at random.
How about you, Derek?
Hi, everyone. I'm Derek. I use he, him pronouns. I am zooming in from Chicago, and this is Morgana, who is also visiting with us as well. I am in the D-Min in Theology and the Arts, and I am here because I love theology and the arts, and this seems like such an exciting way to ground myself on a weekly basis. So I've scheduled it in so that I can make as many of them as I can.
Awesome.
And I will popcorn to Candace.
Hi, I'm Candace, and I'm zooming in from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and I use pronouns she and her, and I am in the D-Min in Theology and the Arts, and I'm zooming in because I love talking about theology and the arts. I want to absorb as much as I can. And I will popcorn to Pan.
Hello, my name is Pan. I'm a MDiv student, dual degree, interreligious chaplaincy and eco-justice. I'm currently in my hometown, Edmonton, Canada, and I will be here for a little bit, most of this term. Normally I'm in the Twin Cities, but got some long waiting to do over here for some paperwork. So I am at Zoom lunch today because I have read Isabel's art project and I wanted to hear what it sounded like. But last week was also great with the making of art. So I come and go depending on what is of interest in my time, but particularly excited to hear your voice, Isabel. I don't know what CN means, but Reverend Tyrone.
Hey, everyone. The CN simply means canon, the Reverend Canon. Tyrone, folks, I'm zooming in from Philadelphia Episcopal Cathedral, where I serve on staff here. This is my third year in the D-Min program in Theology and the Arts. He, him. I really love coming to Arts Lunch. I mean, it's just a great source of information. It's a great way to stay connected to a lot of the folks at the seminary, particularly since I'm not there on campus. And so I think that's great. It's also just a bit of a respite for me. I mean, just throughout the day, being able to kind of just, you know, take a break, have some food, and really just engage around some cultural issues. And so that's really exciting for me. So good to be here. I think, let me see, Ben. How about Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben Steckelberg. I use he, him pronouns. I'm zooming in from my kitchen in Minneapolis today. And I will say that I'm an MDiv student in religious chaplaincy and an MA student in theology and the arts. And I am here because I am just really curious to see like a large, I don't know, I want to see how a fellow theology and the arts person worked out their concept for like a big project in the program and what all you did. So I'm just excited to see. Yeah, thanks. Popcorn. All right. I will pass it to Bridget.
Hey everybody, and all in the room. Hello. I'm usually there, but couldn't make it in today. I'm Bridget Weber. I use they or she pronouns. I'm in the interreligious chaplaincy and social transformation programs and a regular at Arts Lunch, love Arts Lunch. And definitely here particularly today to support Isabel, and really interested to hear. I haven't heard any plays yet at United, so I'm super pumped, and I haven't seen any of your work yet either, and I'm really excited to just witness and be here. Yeah, thanks everyone for being around. And Lisa, hello. Pass it.
Hello, I'm Lisa. My pronouns are she and her. I am zooming in from Philly. And I'm an MDiv UU studies major. I am here to support Isabel. I kind of just stumbled upon that this was happening. Thanks, Pam. Yeah, I've rarely made an arts lunch, so I'm really excited to finally be here. I finally put them on my calendar this semester, so hopefully that will not just rely on me remembering that I read them in Monday morning, but have a calendar pop up every week. So yeah, so I'm sorry, I did jump in a little late because I lost track of time watching a lecture. Is there anyone else who hasn't gone yet?
Just in person, just the folks in the room.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, Jennifer, you're on. I'm popcorning it to Meg. Great. Hi, I'm Meg Mercury. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm a MA Religion and Theology student in my third year. And let's see here, I'm at Arts Lunch because it's Isabel's birthday. So, I'm just confused. And there are cookies and cupcakes here. Popcorn to Cindy Beth.
I am Cindy Beth Johnson, and I use she, her pronouns. I am here because I love the arts and did a lot of work in the arts over the years, and right now I'm the vice president for advancement. And Jennifer personally invited me to come, as she does every week, but I don't usually make it. So, and I'm going to point it to you.
I'm Eric, generally go by he, his. I'm here in support of Isabel, and also because I've had a question ever since I read your thing at the gathering here months ago. So I'm looking forward to hearing it and hearing you.
A little tired. Hi, everybody. I'm Debian, he, him. Why am I here? Well, I was voluntold to be here. But more serious, I'm just I'm a vigorous supporter of the arts at United. Theology is art, art is theology. We all know that to be true. And here to support Isabel, of course. So excited to be here to share. So happy to be here, friends.
All right.
Afterwards.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for doing that. wish I could claim that this was like the master plan all along, but I will share that like as folks were sharing, I was like, right, we should do this to know who's in the room and kind of build community in this way, because I think certainly in my arts practice, that is part of artistic practice as well as theology, is this act of telling our stories and building community in that way. My background is as a physical theater artist, so I in non-COVID times, and we're emerging from those now, work within the context of an ensemble to create original work, typically from the seed of like an old story, so like a fairy tale or a myth or a folklore, something that feels like it's sort of in the bones and kind of shows up across the web of humanity in different permutations, to sort of revision that into a story that feels really relevant to us in the moment of creation. Now in United, kind of feeling called to this. I don't know, never know where to look when I have people in person, and so yeah, I'll do the thing.
Welcome to our night.
But in my time at United, have started to kind of formulate. Let me back up. I like this thing of art being theology, I think feels deeply intuitive to me, and at the same time I've had trouble articulating. And maybe it's because we don't live in a culture that really understands the depth of that connection. And maybe part of it is just like my own discernment process, but being in United and feeling really encouraged and held and seen in my artist self in addition to my other selves has been really impactful for me. And particularly in the context of this arts practice class, you know, where we're invited to sort of conceive and implement and flesh out a project that really gives life and voice to this idea of art as theology, this reality of art as theology. Kind of came to a framing of the sacred as deep story, which is something that language that only emerged after I worked on this project. So that's kind of maybe helpful to know too. I don't want to give too much preamble just because I know I don't know, because I use so much time community building because I think it's important, and part of this work too. But I will say that like as a theater artist, I kind of came into arts practice being like, well, I'll make a theater thing. And I was like, I'm not going to make a theater thing. I mean, I'm not going to get in a room with other people and build a piece the way that I'm used to building a piece. And some of the reasons for that were very practical. But it also felt like an opportunity to see what happened if I foregrounded my own voice in an artistic voice in a really intentional way. One of the things that I really love and find like really important and challenging about working collaboratively is this like give and take between multiple voices, right? Like how we build something unified together that holds space for the particularity of all of us. And something that I have wrestled with, particularly being socialized as a white woman, is the ways in which I might abdicate my own voice or pseudo abdicate my own voice in a way that's actually controlling, like just wrestling with that in relationship with other people is an ongoing journey for me. And so I'm like, well, what if I actually let go of the concern, like the people pleasing piece, or try to in this context and see what happens if it's just what's coming out of me. And also further context for this piece, like just a moment of deep grief and threshold of transformation for me. So found myself returning to imagery and stories that have always felt really close to my heart. And I never know whether I should say what they are.
Maybe after.
I'll talk, yeah, we can talk influences after, because I would love to hear just what folks hear in the space. But essentially what I will be sharing with y'all today is sort of a series of poems that create a narrative. And I still feel like it's a work in progress. I feel like this is one version of its life. I think it might become a play someday. But right now this is the form it's taken. Yeah, it's probably gonna, I'm guessing like 10 to 15 minutes. And I always feel really shy and a little vulnerable sharing these things. But I did share it in our gallery as a written piece, but it's meant to be spoken and heard. It's meant to be an oral recitation in its current form. So what I'd actually invite y'all to do, I'm going to turn off my video and invite folks to either like close their eyes or lower their eyes or kind of find a neutral gaze, because yeah, I really think for me, it's much more about the text and whatever it brings forth for you in your imaginative space than it is about like what my face is doing. So I think that's my prologue. And can everybody on Zoom hear me okay with the mics in here? Good, just wanted to make sure. Okay. And that goes double for all of y'all in the room. Please don't look at me. I mean that. I'm thinking that. Okay. And I've chosen the image on my video for this, even if you need to zoom. Okay. All right. So this is the mother in the morning song. Prologue. Once upon a time, there was a mother who lost her child. Once upon a time, there was a mother who sent her child into the wilderness alone. Once there was a mother who howled, who stuffed her mouth and womb with soil and swore she would never again, never again. Once there was a woman alone who dug herself a den and scrabbled and dug and listened to the whisper of the creepy crawlers and listened to the deep hum of the earth to quiet her roiling and chewed on roots to calm her ravenings and waited and wept and hummed and moaned and grew fur and claws and forgot herself and remembered. Mother one. Once upon a time, there was a mother had a child who went missing, went skipping into the woods, basket and all, and never came back. And the mother had turned from the window so soon, too soon. She hadn't even seen the glimmer of her child disappear down that thread of path of trees. So it wasn't until much later, when the stew had been simmering for hours and the pies had long since cooled on the sill, that it even occurred to her to worry. Mother two. For the longest time she sat, still as a statue, in the rocking chair by the front door. By turns crumbling sand, stone, steel. Beneath her skin the waves swelled and crashed, despair, rage, the cutting cool of fear. The planks under her feet rotted and crumbled. The neighbors whispered from their adjacent acreage, and vines overtook her feet. Still she stayed still, frozen in time. Breath is the only testament to the wild beating within. Breath and eyes that sparked like opals. Mother three. When the house would no longer stand, she took to the woods. Home forgotten, some sense memory of her child called her to forest, where she wandered, mucked and dirty, hair matted, back curved, until she found a tree with sheltered roots. She stood there a long time before digging. The earth is moist in spring. It will find its way into all places. It feels good between fingers and toes. It will give way beneath your hands. It will make space for you. The earth is cool in autumn, tangled with the roots of summer's growth, crumbling, stained. It is less willing to give up its secrets.
but scrabble and dig, grunt and hum, and make a hollow, a den, a home, a womb of dirt for holding. Mother 4. She was there a long, long time. Time means nothing in the deep dark, and the scrabbling within that had clawed at her heart and rent her gut to shreds was soothed by the deep hum of the earth. The first thing she lost was her name, the next her language. She only retained the name of her daughter, cradled like an egg in her mouth. She sang it to herself like a lullaby, harmonizing with the scratch of beetle legs and the slimy slipping of earthworms and the occasional distant mole. And lulled by this act of quiet, the sound of burrowed life all around, she cocooned and buried her heart and slept. Lullaby. Into the darkness, sound of the light, nothing but nothing inside. Down beneath rotting leaves, smokes and moss, loving brings nothing but loss. No one but no one will find their way home. Carve out a sheltered place here, safe in the darkness, curl in the deep. Close your eyes now, go to sleep. Daughter 1. It is hot and sticky here in the deep dark. I was scared for a moment, but not anymore. I am not comfortable, but I am warm, and neither am I alone. It's hard to breathe, but I like the sound of life all around me. I think I'm growing fur. Grandmother says it's normal to feel that way, all part of the process. She's been here longer than I have. Her voice is different than I remember, and eyes are no help in the deep dark, but I trust her. She is a good listener. Mother 5. And down in the deep dark, dreams. She dreamt she grew fur, shaggy and thick, tangled in spots with burrs. She dreamt her haunches into lengthening and new curvature and patted out her palms. She dreamt her throat opened wide, wide, that her tongue became long and flexible, that her hearing sharpened to catch even the faintest whispers of her under and overground neighbors. Fleas, rabbits, field mice, garter snakes, centipedes. She dreamt herself ravenous, shaking dirt from her coat to prowl, hunting the daughters of others wandering the woods alone. One such wave she found picking flowers and found her shoulders tensing, mouth watering, jaw unhinging to swallow her in one big gulp. But just as she gathered to leap, the girl turned, and time stopped, and her eyes, better to see with, my dear, beheld her own sweet child. Mother 6. No, 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 no. Mother 7. She woke from dreams of her daughter, shocked into screaming, grunts and moans, birthing a brief song that tore new spaces in the dirt around her, collapsed the walls of her new home like the earth was offering itself up, and obliging she stuffed fistfuls into her still yawning mouth, so her keening and soil mixed with some alchemy, and when her throat was full, stuffed her womb, shuffled handfuls between gaping legs, stoppered up that aching absence that had stitched her child from blood and magic,
earth child, dirt mother, no more, never again. After the screaming, after the moans, after the sundering, who knew there could be such silence? Mother 8. I don't know how to leave this place. My sorrow has become my home. I remember when you were a child, so drawn by the woods, so infuriated by my preoccupation with pots and pans and washing. You took my hand and pull me now. Unearth me. I no longer know my own limbs. I don't know that I can do this alone. Daughter 2. Mother, I remember you telling me to sit up straight. I remember you brushing my hair. I remember you like a wick burnt low, trimming my own, and you always near shivering. Where is your fur, Mother? I thought I saw tufts once, peeking out from under your fingernails, but then you flinched away, sat on your hands, and the next time I saw you, they were manicured, hairless, bloody short, cut to the quick. Mother 9. First, a casual scratching of the path between roots, a single curved nail, almost absent-minded, and then encouraged all fingers, full palms, faster, faster towards the surface, no tentative emergence like an early crocus, more geyser, more lunge, more birthed thing suddenly gasping for air. Rest now. Breathe. Seek water and wash away all that haunts you. Your body gaunt and dimpled at once, pot-bellied and parched. Anoint yourself with the smell of clear water, no longer tamed, only tender and fierce and grieving. What is your new food now that eating earth is done? What grows above the ground? Sweet berries instead of turnips, chives instead of garlic, pears instead of onions. Nourish your wild body and love all it can do. Stretch out limbs, loll and howl, accompany the moon on its languorous arc. Become full. Drip saliva and honey, be rich and resilient as lichen, soft as underbelly. Sensitive as the small hairs inside the ears. Dig your claws into the earth, crouch, leap, pounce. What greater joy than this? What sweeter pain than living? Daughter 3. I thought I heard you, Mother, calling my name through these living walls. Your voice ragged and wildish, so strange to my ear that at first I did not know you. I remember your voice contained and cool as glass, not this writhing, soaring thing that bounds from vocal cords with such fury, such joy. Oh, Mother, my mother, how my heart leaps to hear you finally in your fur. Thank you. Any questions? I'm not sure how to, yeah, so that is my offering. I would welcome any questions that you have, or what struck you, or what images emerged for you. Yeah, I think in images often, and so curious about what emerged for anyone in the listening.
Thank you. And my question has to do with images.
Yes.
And imagery. You mentioned that there was a story or more that you were working out from. I'm sure there were also, it's kind of like the interplay between what you thought you might cover and what ground you wanted to plow, and what you discovered on the way, and what still exceeds your understanding. So if you can talk a little about that dialogue in your creative process between what you intended, what you found, and what you were led into that's still a path you don't know where it goes.
Yeah. It's a really rich question. I mean, and I'll be transparent too, that like the process happened long enough ago at this point that it's sort of like more of a sense memory than a clear recollection of like, well, this and this and this. I think that, I mean, the image of like digging into the earth was the thing that came first. This sort of like really kind of visceral desire for that. There was also, I think that was the first thing. I also remember starting to think a lot about, I mean, folks probably picked up that there's a good deal of Red Riding Hood, swimming around in there. And it's a story I've explored before, theatrically and otherwise. And in those processes have focused on, ostensibly the Red Riding Hood character. But this spring or this winter found myself being like, we never hear about the mother, like this mother who, sends her daughter out into the wilderness, and then like, we don't give her attention at all. And so thinking about that, and as a mother myself, feeling like I had a connection to or a sense of like gutful imagination about what that might feel like. But the first sort of draft of this, which I think almost all the poems that were in the first draft are in here, but they only make up maybe a third of it, kind of all spilled out one morning. So I mean, that felt like a very, like, I think any, folks who are artists in this space, like, I think that when we're fortunate, we sort of experience this moment where you feel more like a conduit, and that it was that sort of thing where I just sort of like, oh my God, this is it, this is the thing. And yeah, and then from there, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but like there's still a lot in here that I feel like I don't quite like the reason I call it a draft is because I feel like there's, this feels like the life stage of something that has more to come. And in some ways, like having this, I'm really excited to invite other folks into a process to see what they reveal with it too, and what we discover together. I feel like your question was really like rich and complex, and I touched on like some, but not all of it. Were there things that you'd like to re-lift up to touch on?
I don't want to, I want to give opportunities for others, but I can certainly follow up. We'll have,
Right,
we'll see each other.
He didn't say this in his intro, but that's my dad, so he'll have other opportunities to pick my brain about this. Okay. Other responses or questions? I mean, I just am always curious how. It's also hard on Zoom to tell, like. To tell.
Yeah, good book share. See, we had a whole semester together, so I'm physically restraining myself from saying anything, so. But I'd be curious for folks who are hearing this for the first time, what your response was, just even in, like Isabel said, like kind of imagery, or what was the experience like of hearing it read for the first time.
Also, because this is the first time I've read it for other people. I never said that, but I maybe should have.
Wait, you didn't read it to your class? Oh,
You read the first.
I read the first draft.
The first draft, so that's like portion of the poems, and then there was the recorded
Right,
version that was part of the display.
but that was in a sound booth, and it's not the same.
I don't think I heard. I think they'd taken away the headphones before I got to it, so I have read it with the.
Different headphones, Pan. It was a QR code, and you could bring it up. On your
Oh,
phone. Yeah.
true. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. I don't think I heard it, but I read it, and the experience of like the paper and the scenery that you presented it, or like its setting, may have influenced, but it may have been the reading itself. But both times I got a very earthy feel, for sure. I was like in the woods. It was musty and dark, but in a really pleasant way, because I love I love like mossy dark forests. So I felt really at home. And I think my favorite part of you reading it was hearing the lullaby, because I wouldn't have known what the tune was or what you intended with the lullaby, and it was like in a good way haunting, in a very chilling, like, oh my gosh, wow, that's so powerful. And it really fit with or alongside the feeling of darkness and sort of like mystery of what's happening, really added this I guess participation almost, of like, oh, I feel that too, and I totally understand like what's happening. And then the other piece was the no, 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 no. Like I remember reading that entire page of no's and being like, oh, I took all the no's in. I didn't flip ahead. I read all of them. So the fact that you also, I was waiting to see how long he went on for the no's. And yeah, no, I was the combined experience was really, they were different but complementary. Very well done.
For me, it was an experience of worship, that I just felt like I was in this worshipful space, listening and being I went into a meditative space listening to the words, and I had a lot of images come up, some directly related to words, but also things that kind of moved. And so I kept, a constant image that came was this underground, even cave isn't the right word, it's just this this globe of earth underground with the roots of the tree was all along the sides, and I kept seeing that. But I also kept seeing this image also of the tree as the mother, and sometimes the mother was in there underneath the tree, and sometimes the tree was the mother. And so I kept having, I mean, I kept going back as in different spaces. And there was just this moment of, I think the other image that, came up, I mean, it moved me a lot into, I kept also getting a lot of earth goddess kind of feeling as well. And that sort of, and there was also a point, and I can't remember now, it's easy for me to connect if I was like looking at it in front of me, but there was a moment, there's a hymn, and are you hymnal, let may nothing evil cross this door. And that hymn just started running through my head as you were speaking. And I was just like, oh, and so that was flowing or underneath your words. And so I just kept having these moments of just being so moved, but also pulled off into other kind of worlds, but it's all connected to the earth, and being held in the kind of the womb of the earth, which is kind of the whole sense that I felt throughout the entire time.
I love that, Derek. Thank you so much. It also occurred to me I could share that, and I think Jennifer may have observed this moment. I had written another poem that was titled Epilogue, that in the reading this time, it didn't feel like was necessary. And so I didn't, but that was also, I think, like a gift of the space and sharing it for me, was realizing that that poem isn't actually required, that it's not necessary. So that's a gift from y'all.
I'm thinking of the Lisa, go ahead.
I really, I heard the parallel pretty early, but really connected with the perspective shift and the intensity that can come from like a typically unseen character or unseen perspective. I also really connected with the felt transported by the scene of the digging in the wet earth. Like kind of similar to what Pan said, just felt very much. Also have really fond memories of misty, rainy fall hikes in the woods and getting transported back there. So thank you.
And yet nature is also a space of chaos. Like it's definitely an ambiguous vision of how nature is deployed within that. In this series of poems. The other question I was going to ask you, because I can't help but ask, but what would you say is theological? Like what's what kind of theological meaning do you derive from that? Sort of informs the creation of that beautiful work.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of different answers to that are all true. I think what's coming up for me in this moment is like an honoring of what I sort of named in my artist talk as the wild self, or like the sense of deep knowing and how that connects to a profound sense of the sacred, which for me is also then very connected to the natural world and so far as like where I feel most in tune with that often. Yeah, and I think that there's other ways that I think there's something too about how that connects to a sense of ancestry and connectedness through story. Period.
Sometimes I start a sentence. And then it's over. Yeah. So more, I mean, obviously, could monologue about that for a while, but I think those are the pieces that feel most present for me right now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading. The words are incredible. You reading them is yet another aesthetic experience. Thank you.
I was actually too moved by it to say very much. Two parts especially compelled me. One was the shattering of the opening innocence, and was really powerful. And you know, before she was worried while the stew was simmering, and I mean that was those images were just so immediate. And then the other piece was that especially struck me was the hearing of the life above and I can't remember the little creatures now, but it was like you could feel them and hear them. It was quite amazing. And all of it was beautiful. So thank you.
I love these poems because they smell.
Yes.
Good. But then a lot of people have made comments, like, you know, to that effect, but they're from, you know, the first lines. It's very, you know, it's earthy. It's the smell of black dirt and like decomposing leaves and roots and all those, you know, the undersides of stones and moss and all of that stuff. And so it's like very tactile, very aromatic, very sensory, like sensory and like, yeah, in a physical way, but then that like very deep, like gut, like response where you can feel yourself, the emotional tug of the poem basically drives it a lot in a way that I always find myself by the end of the poem having an emotional response. It was an honor to witness your process in class. Yeah, art makes like the chat. I have more questions about process, but I'm also aware of time, and I don't know if there were any other comments or questions that folks in Zoom or in person had. It's a little bit mundane now after all of the love fest for your poem attack. But you know, maybe it's a some of your dad's question, I don't know. But that you had this kind of initial, you know, burst of poems. That the whole process to me that as I witnessed it seemed very intuitive as well. Like you had some ideas kind of going in, that discernment process of like, well, I'm not going to just default to a theater piece, like there's something meaningful about the medium and doing something individually, which was challenging. And I think at first a little, you know, unnerving, yeah, terrifying, you know. But you bravely proceeded and you kind of followed I guess we'll just stick with the metaphor, but like follow the path into the woods, which was like unnerving, but I think very productive. So you wrote those first few poems. You came in and like, as you do today, like kind of vulnerably shared them with the class. They were, you know, ecstatically received by your classmates. I was curious about, and maybe you can only remember the feeling of it, but then going from that process where it's like, okay, here's the thing and there's a direction. And then how do you pick it up from there to kind of like figure out, okay, now I'm done,
Yeah.
you know, or this gives it at least in this iteration of a poem series, knowing that you might develop it in a different medium later.
Yeah.
How that felt.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so it may be helpful, context that like in that first block of poems that I shared, the first several poems were like basically the same, you know, she ended up in the digging herself her little earth womb, but then there was also this like kind of crazy additional poem of like giving birth to this like mycelium baby who was like implanted in her and like rode around on her back through the woods, which I also sort of loved but felt like a different story. So ended up setting that aside, and yeah, I think from there it was I just sort of kept writing, like every, you know, few days or week or something, I would, if like an image or a line came to my mind, I would sit down and write it out. And that's where some of the stuff, especially more towards the end about the relationship between the mother and the daughter, and this kind of sense of, oh, and my computer's about to die, so I might go sit next to Jennifer in a second, but the kind of taming the feminine, or like the idea of domesticating girls, and the ways that women do that to other women, or women do that to girls, kind of came out and later, but also felt like it sort of thematically tied in a way that maybe the mycelium baby did not. Much as I love the mycelium baby. Yeah, so I think it was sort of like all of these other poems kind of started to drop in, and then like as a theater artist as well as another kind of artist, I think my favorite part is sort of then figuring out how the pieces fit together and like making sure the connective tissue exists. So then it was like, oh, and this one goes over here, and this one goes, you know, and like doing that sort of like shuffling and reshuffling felt like a very sort of engaging and joyful process. And then also if I found gaps, like kind of trying to figure out a way to fill them, which in some ways always feels a little bit like, oh, how like protracted am I being if it's like, well, I need a poem that does X. But yeah, I mean, I feel like as soon as I had the foundation and I knew what the world was, which is what that initial sort of gush was, then that felt like a touchstone I could return to and like would sprout little other offerings that felt related and kind of helped to then guide the rest of the journey. That's wonderful. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think like maybe for a theater artist, that process is a little bit different than say like for an academic writer having to like the joyfulness that sounds like, oh, or like the sense of play,
Yeah.
or discovery, or like kind of I was just at an antique shop with my dad and looking at old knobs for this house and trying to find bits that match, which for my dad, who was initially like a little grumpy about the whole endeavor, got really excited about finding the right knobs. It's a little bit of that sense of like, oh, here's a problem I want to kind of like solve and like play with the pieces. So.
Well, and it helped too that like, well, at this point, I don't think I've written it down, but for those of you who weren't here for the in-person like presentation, so all of the poems are written like on this kind of thick textured paper. And I wrote them with a fountain pen, which is a birthday present last year, which I love. And there are 3 different colors of ink, depending on whose voice we're hearing, whether it's the mother or the daughter, or the ones without titles. I thought of as sort of the grandmother's voice or the crone's voice, which I think was less clear in the reading today, but just as a additional framing. So that also makes, so I have them on other not as nice pieces of paper, and I got to do the very like tactile thing of rearranging them on a table, which for me is like so much better than like doing it on a Word document or something. It's like I have to have the pieces that I can physically rearrange. So yeah, that helps make it joyful.
Yeah, and Pam alluded to the display too, when you had it displayed in the gallery, you had bits of moss and bark and things like that too. So it was like with little signs of like, smell me. So it was like inviting a very tactile, like the viewer would shuffle through the pages and read them and would be listening to it while reading them and, touching these bits of bark and moss. So.
Yeah. I found a particularly smelly piece of like decomposing wood that I was very delighted to have found. So that was what's to smell.
Well, I think we're probably up on our time, but thanks so much to Isabel for sharing these poems and so beautifully. And thank you all for your attention and questions. And I know if you have any more burning questions, I'm sure Isabel is happy to also talk with you later as an experienced arts praxis person. And next week, Jacques will be talking to us also about theater and performance and maybe puppets and pickup truck operas and the like. So we'll continue our performativity theme for the next few weeks. So one more. Thank you all and happy birthday. Thanks for taking the time on your birthday.
Works out great. Works out great. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it.